and welcome to this week's episode of the Roundtable Talk. This morning I am in Western Province, and joining me on the table is the Provincial Minister for Western Province, and this is Honorable Richard Kapita. Honorable Minister, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
Fine, and thank you for having me.
Great stuff. I have to tell you, you have got a very beautiful province here. I've had an opportunity to go to, I think, 2 or 3 districts.
Right.
And what I've seen, though, except the sand, I think there's a bit of sand here and there, but apart from that, I think it's a beautiful place, beautiful sights to see.
Yes, it is. I don't think you've been to places like Sioma, for example.
Not yet, but I intend going.
With white sands along the river Zambezi. So there are beaches there as though you are somewhere else and not in Zambia.
Wow.
So we would urge you to go to places like that, including the park, national park in Liua and in the Zambezi. That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yes, the sand may be difficult sometimes for
to navigate the
vehicles, especially for those that have never driven here. It is not easy, but once you get used, you get the hang of it, you'll be fine.
Okay. No, I'm sure we'll get used to it because I'm here for a while.
You will.
So, Honorable Minister, just I think the beginning of last year, we experienced, I think globally, the COVID-19 struck, and this has really caused quite a number of problems around the world. Zambia has not been spared, and recently now we find ourselves in an even worse variant, which is I think claiming the lives of so many loved ones. Your province, I'm sure, has been affected, but I would like to know to what extent.
Well, you're right. The pandemic, the COVID pandemic, has not spared anybody. Our province is no exception, and I must say that, in fact, some of the people we've lost were very close to me. I've lost senior people in the province, and it has not been very easy. These would be people who, when you have that rapid test, the test negative, and 3 days later, you have died. So it is a strange feeling. We have, until about Monday, I have not gotten yesterday's figures. Our task force is always on the ground, very busy. I think we have about 1,861 infections. Right now we have close to about 10 people, 3 people on oxygen. They are spread out in places like Sesheke, Mongu, Kaoma, but we are managing these cases. We have something like 572 who are being handled or isolated in some of them in their homes. It's easy to manage them that way, self-quarantine. But it's been a challenge because there are people who don't believe in this disease, despite our efforts to try and educate them, to try and sensitize the people that this COVID is real, that it's taking people's lives. When you think of the high-profile figures that we've lost, priests and so on and so forth, people should believe that this thing is real. But we find, I know when we started enforcing the guidelines from the Ministry of Health, we found it quite disturbing, because people would pretend they observe the rules, but in the night, when our task force goes around checking, we found that people were locked up in bars, and they locked the doors. They'll be inside drinking, no social distancing, and so on. But we are managing to try and get the people to realize that this is not a simple thing. Instead of us losing a lot of people, yes, it's been difficult. It's impacted on social life, economic life. As you know, most of our people are traders. That's how they live. That's how they get sustenance. They're traders. Go across the border to Angola, to Namibia. But that has been curtailed because the moment this happened, countries like Namibia, Botswana, just literally shut down the borders and our people wouldn't cross. That affected them economically. Even in the markets, that's where we get a big challenge. Markets, people still believe if someone dies, whether you knew the person who has died or not, they must attend the funeral. They go and attend the funeral, they attend these funerals. They're still having weddings with a lot of people packed in an enclosure. Around here, there are initiation ceremonies. They are very important according to the cultures of people here. So people will be packed for 2 days in one area, dancing, drinking, and so on.
But isn't your government putting up deliberate measures to ensure that this is curtailed? Are you not aggressive enough as a provincial admin, to ensure that in places where these COVID guidelines are being flaunted in such a manner, there is maybe punitive action taken against the people that are flaunting the rules?
So you can only do so much. Excuse me. I do not believe that people should be shepherded like animals and to try and enforce these regulations. I think what is important is sensitization for people to see that their neighbor has died. They've died because of this. You cannot enforce draconian measures as maybe arresting people, because then you see it means that we must start arresting people for example, not wearing a mask, not social distancing, not adhering to rules of not being packed in funeral places and so on. You can't do that. All we can do is sensitize them. There's a country. I don't want to name countries here, but there is a country that poured in soldiers and policemen to try and arrest people that were fronting these regulations. The numbers surged dramatically, so that that it's not possible to deal with human beings like that, because they will stop surviving. Instead of dying from COVID, they'll be dying from hunger. We should allow some liberties for people to do what they do in order to survive, except we must just sensitize them and tell them this is a deadly disease.
Absolutely, Honorable, right. I think there has to be a realistic balance between trying to curtail the COVID and not allowing people to die from hunger. Now, on that economic perspective, Honorable, your province here, what are the main economic activities?
The people around here, as you know, live on fishing. Fishing, agriculture. They grow cassava. In the plains, they grow rice. In the hinterland, they grow cassava, sorghum, and so forth. And in terms of fishing, unfortunately, our rivers have been overfished. Sometimes, sadly, people using, illegal methods of catching fish. There are instances where people use mosquito nets to catch fish. As a result, our fish stocks are depleted in most of the rivers. This is why we have programs that are trying to encourage people to start fish farming. And in fact, the Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries have been around to encourage people to start fish farming so that they can augment the fish stocks. If you went into the Zambezi now, except that there's still a ban, fish ban. Otherwise, the stocks of fish that we used to have, even just 3 years ago, you don't have that kind of fish. So fishing now is hampered because people have overfished. People grow rice. There's also a lot of tobacco in places like in Kiema, Kaoma. People grow a lot of tobacco, which is sold locally and also exported to other countries. Mostly there's a lot of farming now going on. People realize that they must try to feed themselves. So I'm very happy we have programs that are encouraging people to do fish farming, goat rearing, ranching, and vegetable gardening, and a lot of people were involved. Apart from that, as an administration, we earn a lot of money from the forest products. As you know, the best timber species come from here, apart from, of course, the Mukula, which comes from the northern side, and Uchinga. But we have rosewood, we have teak, and so on. And these are species that people can kill for because they are exported heavily to other countries. And as a provincial administration, by doing one or two things that we do to try and enforce the rules in the forest, we've earned quite a bit of money on a yearly basis. I remember that last year we earned close to about 12 million kwacha. So if we put in a lot of resources, we could actually earn much more. The only sad part about the timber business is that we have so many illegal people that harvesting timber and exporting it illegally. But working with our PGOC, we have tried to curb this threat to our forests, because there's indiscriminate cutting of trees, and sometimes they cut even small trees. But as a government, we don't earn enough money from timber that is exported out of the country illegally. So we are supervising that, but in terms of business activities, yes, that's what goes on. People selling cassava, selling sorghum, and so on. They deal with these issues. I know that in places like Sesheke, although it's on a smaller scale, people sell a lot of chili to Namibia. I didn't realize until I went to Sesheke and learned that the Namibians would buy a lot of chili from Sesheke. So if we encourage those people to do more, then your exports will increase. Then we have the cashew business.
I actually have seen. I was in Sikongo, where I encountered quite a bit of cashew planting.
Yes, we have the African Development Bank. The African Development Bank has supported us in the cashew industry through the CIDP program, where they gave Zambia a loan of $54 million, and working very well with some of our colleagues like ETG, who manage the process of planting seedlings and distributing them to all the districts that were earmarked for cashew growing. This is going on very well. Remember, we received close to 3 million seeds. We did 3 million seedlings because of the seed that was donated to His Excellency our President Dr. Edgar Chagwalungu by his colleague President of Tanzania, President Magufuli. So we generated from the first period of last year 3 million seedlings. This year we did another 2.8 seedlings, and encouraging vulnerable people, encouraging women, encouraging youths to go into cashew nut production. You see, cashew fetches a lot of money. In other countries, it contributes close to $5 billion to the treasury.
Wow.
And you will know that, in fact, a ton of cashew will attract more money than a ton of copper. So we're now with.
But how easy is it for, especially the locals, to this cashew?
It's very easy because an NGO called ETG, who sensitize people, who teach people methods of growing cashew and how to look after cashew to ensure that they grow or harvest good. It's not just a question of any other size of cashew. There are sizes that are recommended for in export. So ETG have done a fantastic job in indeed teaching our local farmers, encouraging, as an administration, encouraging a lot of people to go into cashew production. Many years ago, if you go around, in fact today, you see that a lot of trees you see on the road are cashew trees, which have now turned into, well, people used to think they were just meant for shade. We didn't know that there was such a, they didn't know that there was such a value if you looked after those trees. And the first thing that His Excellency President Edgar Chagwa did was to come and officiate at a launch of spraying the trees, the odd trees. In that year, people started harvesting a lot of cashew because those trees were diseased for a long time. But so we've had a double-pronged approach. We spray the old trees, they start producing cashew, and then planting the new seedlings, which in 3 years you can start harvesting. So people are now able to see the benefits of getting involved into cashew. So that is one aspect of our economy here in Western Province that is a game changer. In 3 to 4 years' time, the people stop referring to this province as the poorest province. That I can assure you.
Okay. Great plans you have there, Honorable Minister, and now I'm sure to actualize all those wonderful plans that you have for the province, there is a sector that you must take very good care of, and I think this is the education sector.
Yes.
How is the province faring as regards education? For instance, do we have enough infrastructure for education? Do you have enough schools to ensure that you have a learned population to be able to emancipate your province from poverty levels?
Well, they say that if wishes were horses, a lot of people would ride.
Okay.
We have enough infrastructure, but not to the level that will satisfy everybody. As you are aware, the resource envelope is not as massive as we would like it to be. Nevertheless, as a government, we are the Patriotic Front, headed by His Excellency President Edgar Chagwa, we've gone a long way in putting up infrastructure in places where there never used to be schools. I know that for the period I've been here, I've gone to officiate or open schools that were built in Skongo, in Nalikwanda recently.
I have to talk about Skongo for a second, Honorable Minister. I was there and I found state-of-the-art boarding school in the middle of what I wanted to refer to as nowhere.
Yes.
Beautiful. But what even impressed me more, Honorable Minister, is that the level of the teachers, the quality. Do you know that in that your school, that the heads of department, for instance, are all master's degree holders? I think that was extremely commendable. I found that very, very commendable.
Well, I think that maybe we don't go around beating our chests and saying, look what we've done. You talk about Sikongo, a beautiful secondary school, a beautiful college in Kalabo, which was officially opened by His Excellency the President. These people are training mechanics and this and that. So we've done quite a lot, and would expect that people should appreciate that. Actually, the PF government has gone out there. I hear and done a lot for our people, but I hear from our detractors, the opposition, saying, well, we borrowed so much. If you're borrowing for consumption, that's a different thing. But the PF government has gone and borrowed and looked at the infrastructure. Zambia today is a construction site. Talk of roads. There never used to be tarmac here. You've seen that Mongu to Limulunga, we've started building a tar road. Except, of course, we've had a bad year last year that the funds were not sufficient for us to complete, for example, this road and many other roads. Like you're telling me you're going to go to Lukulu.
Yeah.
We'd like to work on that road so that people can see that we are not only building beautiful roads in Lusaka and Copperbelt and so on. We're building airports, we're building schools, health posts. Out of 60, for example, out of 64 health posts that were earmarked for Western Province, 62 are already operational.
Wow.
Mini hospitals built and operating. If you look at the whole country, this is happening everywhere. Therefore, I expect that the Zambians will wake up and say, hey, which government has ever done this? Even starting from the UNIP days, which government has ever achieved the amount of infrastructure that the PF government has built in the last 8 years? We haven't even done 20 years yet. I hope that by the time PF does 42 years, people will know that there is a government in Zambia of a patriotic front that is doing marvelous jobs. People that left Zambia 5-10 years ago, when they come back to Zambia, they're surprised. And exactly, that's what is happening here. We've got good schools now being built, being opened, and so on. Yes, schools opened on Monday. As a provincial administration, we've done quite a lot to ensure that the safety of our learners that are going back to school by ensuring that there's a lot of washing points in all the schools, ensuring that all the teachers were tested before the schools opened. Sadly, close to about 20 teachers were found to be positive, and they have isolated, they've been quarantined to ensure that the children are safe. So, yes, in the education sector, as you say, we also go for quality. We want the best to educate our children here. You remember that, in fact, this is a province where they say education started. We do not want to drop those standards. I want to encourage and make sure that the PF government does even more than what we found.
Now, yeah, so the quality of teachers or tutors is impressive, but I would also like to find out, do you have enough, I mean, in terms of teacher recruitment, how is the province faring? Do you have enough educators to manage?
If you ask me, if I had my way, but I know that my way may not be the right way because we do not have resources as a country, enough resources as a country. We need close to about 2,000 teachers to ensure that all these structures or schools that are being built are manned by professionally trained teachers. But again, we don't have sufficient funds to go around and recruit a lot of people. I'm delighted to know that maybe in the next few weeks or months, there will be a teacher recruitment, just like there will be nurses and medical people being recruited. But again, this depends on our colleagues at Ministry of Finance finding resources so that the Commission can recruit more teachers. I'd like to have more teachers. Yes, we do not have enough teachers. There are situations where, in some schools where I've gone and found that a teacher is teaching close to about 300 pupils alone, because perhaps he or there are only 2 teachers in that school, where there's about 600 pupils. We'd like to improve on that. For now, the situation is not as good as I'd like it to be.
In the health sector, you already, I think, spoke a minute ago about the province having been given, 64 health posts?
Yes.
And are they all complete? Did you say they are all completed?
We're given 64, but 62 are complete and they're operational.
Okay.
In addition, we have the Lukulu fantastic hospital there working, opened. Mulolezi, I was privileged to go with His Excellency President Gachagua to open state-of-the-art hospital in again in the middle of nowhere. It's a beautiful hospital. Many hospitals in Lui, in Sesheke, and in Nalikwanda. We have a fair share of health infrastructure, but again, we need a lot of staff to be able to run those structures, which unfortunately we do not have resources to recruit everybody we want. But the Ministry of Health are trying so hard to ensure that most of these are staffed in the next few months. Yes.
Great. So let us talk now about the agriculture sector. I know you've already talked about the cashew and so forth and so on.
Yes.
What are the other crops that the province grows, and do you have any deliberate plans to diversify crop?
As you are aware, Nakiwe, our country should diversify from dependence on copper to agriculture, because we have arable land, enough rainfall. This part of the world has, I think, the most rains that you can think of. So yes, we must diversify into agriculture to grow, as I said, things like cassava. Factories are being made today to process cassava, so that even the mines today want to use cassava. So our people's poverty will be reduced by encouraging them to grow cassava. They grow maize, they grow, as I said, cashew nuts. In places like Kayema, Kaoma, Luampa, they grow sorghum, millet, maize, tobacco. So if we encourage people to do a lot of these things, we'll be self-sufficient and in fact feed other provinces. So yes, in this place, a lot can grow. When I first came here, I used to think, what can grow in the sun? But it's amazing when you see the crops that grow in the sun.
Okay.
God had his own way to make sure that whether there was sand or not, people would still grow food and eat the food that they grow. So we're doing very well in terms of agriculture, and people being sensitized to grow more. Groundnuts grow here, peanuts, they grow here. In fact, when we talk about cashew, cashew will take you, when you grow it today, plant it today, it will take you about 3 years to 4 years for you to harvest. Now, in between, the NGO ETG I was talking about has encouraged people to intercrop. So in those spaces, because from one tree to another is about 10 meters. So in these spaces, people can intercrop with groundnuts, cassava, they intercrop with maize, so that these are cash crops that will help them feed themselves, take their children to school before they harvest the cashew in 3 to 4 years. So it is self-sustaining. As a province, I'm happy that a lot of people have taken agriculture seriously.
Great. And farmer input support program from your government, how is that?
Yes, we have two sectors here. There are certain districts who are on a direct input, direct supply. This would be like Kaoma, Kayema, Luampa, and so on. And this other side, we have the FISIP program going on, and I must say that rather last year, and I think that with a good rainfall, we're going to have a bumper harvest in Western Province because people receive their inputs early. Of course, there are complaints of people, some people not receiving inputs early, but not in the majority. A lot of people receive their inputs early, and I'd like to thank my colleague at Ministry of Agriculture for stepping up and ensuring that farming inputs came in quite early, and therefore we're expecting a bumper harvest in almost all the crops. But what is good also is that people are not just going to collect maize seed. They go to collect plows, against the monies that they are given. They collect plows, they collect other crops like groundnuts and so on. They have a choice, which is good. Yeah.
Great. Now, let's discuss social welfare. I know, I mean, in life there'll always be the people that are slightly disadvantaged among us, and how is the government taking care of the underprivileged?
I'm pleased to say that, in fact, the numbers here have increased.
Okay.
We used to have something like 79 beneficiaries. These are people that used to, able-bodied would get something like 90 kwacha, and the disabled they were getting something like 150 kwacha, and today able-bodied are getting 150, and the disabled are getting close to 200 kwacha, 300 kwacha per month. The beneficiaries, I think, for now, that the government, the PF government is helping, has increased from 79,000 last year, the other year, up to last year, and today we're talking close to 82,000. What a jump that President Lungu and his government are helping the people of Western Province. Listening to my colleague, Minister of Community Development, we are even set to increase that number, so that we cater for the vulnerable, child-headed homes and so on. They all have different packages that help sustain their lives. So I'm very happy that in terms of the social cash transfer, people are happy that they're receiving these monies. It's like it's magic. From nowhere, the person doesn't work, but they are receiving support from their government, and I hope that they will appreciate that no other government has ever done this other than the PF government, and give massive support to the PF government that they can continue even receiving more once President Lungu does his second term.
Right. Now, tourism. I know you talked about some resorts, some areas where there's white sandy beaches and so forth and so on. How much are you exploiting tourism in the province? Is it one sector that you can say is also contributing to, bringing in money into the province?
Yes, tourism potential is massive in this province. As you know, we have lots of rivers. We have a national park, the Nakiwe National Park, although we share it with Mumbwa, or should I say Central Province. There's massive opportunities for tourism, except I think that as a government we need to realign ourselves to ensure that when a tourist comes into this country, they should spend not less than 4 days, 5 days. But there are a lot of things that hamper that to happen, that causes that to happen. Our medical schemes, people who come to this country probably have schemes where they come from, and if they fall sick, they worry what will happen to them, so they'll spend 2-3 days and then they leave. Secondly, I think as a country we've not done enough to advertise the beautiful and massive potential we have here as a tourist destination. You have situations, in fact, where you hear Zimbabwe, South Africa advertising that the Vic Falls is in their country. It's only 2 hours away from Johannesburg and things like that. Meaning, we actually must find a solution, find money to showcase and package and showcase what these beautiful sites we have, the Luangwa National Park, the and so on. You go to Liua, you'll find a first-class lodge or hotel there in the middle of nowhere, but people there live with animals and so on. So there is potential in tourism, but I think as a government we need to do more, like we've done in several other sectors, to improve accessibility to some sites. The road infrastructure in some of these areas leaves much to be desired, and people don't want to be traveling for something like 4 or 5 hours to go and see animals in a park because of the nature of our roads. But once we improve on 1 or 2 things, tourism will rake in a lot of money in a province like Western Province.
Now, there is one aspect that I think there is so the flooding situation. How is it? I know that there is a lot of rain in this
yes,
period.
Once in a while, we have floods. But what is intriguing is that then the following year you have a drought.
Interesting.
I know that for the past year or so we didn't even have our annual ceremony, the Komboka, because there wasn't enough water in the Zambezi River. Then last year we had enough water, but then COVID set in, so we couldn't have a Komboka. I suspect that even this year, I think that the BRE will probably sit down and decide, how do we hold this very important annual ceremony like the Komboka
in the midst of
the COVID. But if they can find a solution on how, although I don't know, because you'll have a lot of international visitors, local visitors, and there it will be difficult to...
because it might become a super spreader.
Exactly. But yes, there's enough rain, but sometimes you have so many floods. And the people that live on the banks of the river and those that literally live in the middle of the rivers have to relocate because otherwise they'll be swept away. That has been the situation. 1 year you don't have enough rain, there are no floods. The following year you have a lot of rain, there's floods. It is the environment we're talking about these days. Climate change and so on affects almost everything that we do these days in this world.
Now, Honorable Minister, I would have loved to go on and on, but in the interest of time, I know that you have to rush to for a parliamentary session, and therefore I have to sadly cut short my interview with you. But I have to just one question from my viewers, because this is a live broadcast. So one of my viewers would like to know when the Sesheke Road is going to be worked on.
The Sesheke Road, is an economic road, and all of us would like to see that road done, just like many other roads. If you ask me, I'd rather we start from the Kaoma Lukulu Road. That too is an economic road. I know that the contractor has been identified who is going to start working on Sesheke Road, because we know that and acknowledge that it's an economic road. But we are also lobbying government to ensure that we get resources also to do the Kaoma Lukulu Road. Once that is done, I think we'll be done. So that in the following year, we can probably do Kaoma Kasempa again, increasing the traffic of those people that take copper through Kitwe, Lusaka, can now start using Kasempa, Kaoma up to the border to export copper and many other minerals. So yes, we are lobbying for resources to ensure that the road infrastructure is perfected, especially the Sesheke Livingston Road. This is what we are doing as a government to ensure that things flow. And as soon as our resources improve as a government, I think we can do much more. Talk about Sikongo, Kalabo Sikongo Road. Again, that is another economic road, such that if we had a proper road, people of this province would be exporting their agriculture stuff across the border. Because in Angola, they'll buy almost anything that we grow, just like the Congolese side. Anything we grow, they can buy. Right now, because we don't have the link, they import their food stuff from Brazil, Argentina, and so on. Yet we are a country that can be the people that should provide food to such countries as Angola and Congo.
Great stuff, Honorable Minister. On that note, I would like to thank you profoundly that you took time off your busy schedule to just come and discuss Western Province in general on the roundtable talk this morning. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you for having me. I would have loved to say more
Yes.
for my province, because one thing I've said is that I would like, by the time my tour of duty ends in Western Province, people should never refer to Western Province as the poorest province,
Right.
but that it should be among the provinces that can feed other provinces.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Well, there you have it, my roundtable viewers. This morning I featured the Minister for Western Province, Honorable Richard Kapita, making his first appearance on the roundtable talk. And until next week, when I come to you from probably another province and featuring another high-profile guest, my name is Nakiwe Simpungwe.